Hi there, good evening. This is the Composite. I am Deanne Battle, and this is season 3, episode 9, I believe. All right. I've really insisted on jamming myself up with that, right? Because it's like, yes, I want to be organized, which I am not naturally. You see, I'm trying to do production value-ish right now. That's halfway decent. I'll leave it like that for a while. Insisting on labeling seasons and episodes, and then forgetting where we are with that. C'est la vie. I was going to go live earlier, but I had an earlier work obligation. But what that meant is that I finished early today, so I'm just excited about that. I'm excited about that partially because I'm going to spend the rest of the weekend writing, which I had intended to do, but here is another. I am so awkward. Here's another reason why. I don't know if you feel it today. It's been a very serendipitous day, like crazy. Usually for me, I'm just, kind of bumbling around on the struggle bus. Like things don't usually like just appear, or like if I'm trying to sort something out in my head, I usually don't see external confirmations. And I don't know if that's because I'm so in my head about stuff that I can't see it, or again, if something's really different about today. So I was in a meeting at work and I had this super intense moment of deja vu because when I was younger, when I would dream, I was dreaming of things that, happen in the future, which sounds, people are like, okay, well, whatever, that's weird. But no, it really did. Like, so for instance, the boarding school that I went to, I dreamt about it, I think about 1.5 or 2 years before I ended up there. And it wasn't in a way that was recognizable. I had a dream that I was sitting in a math classroom and that I had answered a question and someone made fun of me and upset me. And so because I saw it in my dreams, a couple of times, I was super pissed off. I was like, it's a dream, but who is this kid? This is just terrible. And then my freshman year of high school, it actually happened. And I was visibly like, whoa. Because again, I woke up from that dream feeling so intensely slighted that when I had that feeling again, I'm like, oh my God, that was a dream. And then another time, which I actually did tell to my family about because it freaked me out. So where I grew up was, on the water. And in Far Rockaway, Queens, if anyone's familiar, Jamaica Bay meets the Atlantic Ocean, right? And so over where my friends and I used to go and skim rocks over on Jamaica Bay. But then, when the bay is super, super low, when the tide is low, it used to be where you could just there was this little sandy area and you could walk across. It's hard to explain, but you could walk across to another part of the neighborhood, but only when the tide was low. And so I had a dream that my friend and I were walking on that little patch of sand when the tide was low. And we saw this huge white dog, a mix of a white lab and a white German shepherd, almost really kind of ghostly looking. And it saw us and it chased us. And again, this was a dream where I remembered such an intense level of fear that I couldn't help but remember it. And so, when did that happen? How old was I? I think I was I want to say around 11 or 12, because that was a really active dream state for me. I would say, I think around when puberty started, I think. From then until about 15, and then, stuff went dormant. Stuff is a little dormant right now when I'm asleep. But like I said, today has been different. So I had that dream with my friend and I running from this massive white dog. And so then in real life, one day we were trying to walk down that sandy tributary, and we were 3 houses up, and I looked to the right and I saw that dog, and I stopped and I was like, no, we're not going to do it, because the closer I looked at it, I could see, which I didn't remember from my dream, but the fence was too short. And so the dog would definitely, you could see the dog would be able to hop the fence. And so I've always known that I've had these snatches of epiphanies, or whatever you call it, but I just like, how do you articulate that in a way where people will take you seriously? How do you take that seriously? How do you process that? What is someone or something trying to tell you? And so today what I found, what was happening is, like, I was, had a podcast on in the car, and I was thinking to myself, like, okay, I get off work tonight early. Maybe I could be writing by 7. Okay, which story, do I want to work on? And while I'm thinking this in my head, something on the podcast, I had it connected to my phone, said, you need to finish this damn book. And I was like, oh my God, that's been happening all day. The world is talking to me, y'all. I know, but it's happening. Like, even I'm in the grocery store, and I'm terrible in the grocery store because it's like, if I haven't really been going on a regular basis, food is like super expensive. That'll be, we should talk about inflation the next episode. Okay, I'm going to do an inflation breakdown per me. Okay, we're going to talk about budgeting and inflation and stuff like that, so you can get a better sense of what I'm looking at. But yeah, so I haven't really been going to the grocery store lately. Just trying to do like workarounds. But anyway, I was in there today, and I was at the Giant, and I was frustrated because I'm like, dang, like I usually stop in the Wegmans, and it's just every grocery store is like a slightly different in terms of how they're organized. So I walk in, and while I'm walking in, I'm saying under my breath, like, oh, how long is it going to take me to find the fucking coffee? And while I'm walking down the aisle, I go like this, and the coffee is there. I was like, oh my God, that never happens. So basically, and the other times I'm going to have to like think about it a little closely. But since 9:30 this morning, I've had like 4 or 5 incidents of I'm talking to myself about something. I'm trying to work out something. And it's like, here it is, which never happens to me. So something special is in the air today, and I know there is so much crisis and frustration and suffering and misery, but I've been shook all day because it's, again, like either I'm just paying more attention and I just was not paying attention before, or something about today in particular is very potent. So if you feel that too, then, feel free to respond in the comments. I'm just, because I've been, a little secluded, as of late. I'm really wondering how other people are interpreting some of this energy. So I had to start there. Okay. So thank you for listening to that. Now, other things that we'll talk about. I just wanted to talk about a couple of news stories that were particularly pissing me off. Hold on. I have my little list, so I'm crossing it off. Job numbers. Okay. My friend called me last night and told me this. I was so heated. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the article and stuff, but I'm not going to show it. I feel like, I need to, it's a little hot in here. I need to choreograph like what that's gonna look like in terms of do I want to go back to using StreamYard, which is a little clunky right now, maybe because I don't fully know how to use it, say la vie, or do, like I said, I want to have a setup and then show you an article or whatever, and that's just not my strong suit, which is why it's taken me a long time to make it happen. But what I'll do is I'll list or verbally say the resource, and then I'll read a couple of elements from the article, and then you can take it from there. But I was talking to a friend, yesterday, and we were talking about the economy and everything. And we've both been having like a really hard time, as expenses have gone up. It's like, I commute into New York, and my Easy Pass expenses, since I started this new job about 6.5 months ago, Easy Pass has gone up, I want to say 4 or 5 times, and that's not an exaggeration. So they just keep raising tolls and, food and everything. And so we're just talking like, okay, well, we're just kind of, trying to maintain and make it through. And I had sent her an article because we know the realities that we're experiencing and what we're seeing, but then, all of these pundits and everything are gaslighting everyone and saying how wonderful the economy is. I don't doubt that the economy is wonderful if you're toward the top of the food chain, but down here, it's not that. All right. And so the article that I sent her, this is the title, right? It's from CNN Business. Just a second. My dog came back in the house. All right. CNN Business. And it says, I cannot afford to live. Gen Z is full of financial angst, despite inheriting a golden job market. All right. So journalism is failing us right now. And I'm not a Gen Z, obviously, but if they're telling you, here are things that I want to do to live my life and be happy, but I cannot, for you to say, oh, but it's a wonderful job market, but it's just like, people would rather have the things that they want as opposed to complain. You see what I mean? Like, so it's like, oh, if I could say, oh, I'm not being given enough opportunities, or I don't have enough money, or I could actually go and get it. I feel like a lot of people, if not most people, would just go and get the thing, right? But this title is really saying, oh, Gen Z just doesn't understand how the economy works because the economy is doing wonderful. And it's like, this is why, people don't take you seriously, right? So this is the article that I sent her. I want to read a few snippets from it, and then I want to tell you what she told me, which is what got me heated. So Gen Z is coming into the workforce, and in one of the grand traditions of what millennials cringingly call adulting, they're complaining about how much easier the older generations had it. Framing. Before all the boomers and the slackers throw their tablets across the room, let me note that Gen Zers, folks born between the late 90s and the early 2010s, are entering adulthood during one of the strongest job markets in U.S. history. What type of jobs? Jobs that you don't want to raise the minimum wage for? Jobs that you have to get, 2 and 3 of them, sometimes 4 of them, just to make a living wage? A job is not just a job. You need an adjective in front of that shit. A good job. A sustaining job. Right? A dignified job. We don't just want any old job. Okay? Let's see. I'll read a couple more things here. I just wanted to focus more on the fact of the contempt that this article is showing for Gen Zers that are having, a different economic experience here, a difficult economic experience. Okay, so this is a little bit better, a little bit of a caveat. Like all of us, and then it says, hi, elder millennial here. They're struggling with an onslaught of inflation that pushed prices rapidly higher over the past 3 years. The essentials have been particularly expensive, food prices, and then one quote here is, I make over 3 times the federal minimum wage and I cannot afford to live, he shouts into the camera. It is embarrassing to come out here and say that it is a struggle to survive right now, but I know so many people that are struggling. And, if you look at the cost of education alone, there was an article a friend sent me. Some college in New England, is it BU? Somebody, their tuition next year, the price tag is $93,000. And these younger students, I mean, I took out a lot of loans, but these younger students, right, depending on the school, because some schools have, more of a sliding scale now. But think about the massive amount of money that you would be taking out if you went to a university that costs $93,000 a year. And then somebody might say like, oh, well, they don't need, they can go to a cheaper college or, or not go to college or something. I feel like, I don't know what their demo is. And by demo, I mean damage, because it's definitely a type of person, but there's a type of older person on social media that like anytime somebody under the age of 45 says anything remotely critical, they're so derisive and condescending. And so I haven't figured out what they all have in common, but I'm going to come up with a category for them. I want to come up with a name for that because, there are certain things that younger generations will do. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this or whatever. But I think because I'm an educator and because I've had an opportunity to watch young people and to see the ways in which we fail young people, I think I do a little bit of a better job of trying to be understanding. And I've learned a lot from, my students as well, I would say. But that's the CNN article. And so we're going into an election season with the narrative that, oh, these Gen Zers are going to tank the election for Biden, right? Because that's what they're really getting at. Hold on, wait for it. So the framing is, if Biden loses, here's this group of young people, 18 to 25, that didn't vote for him because they disagreed with his international policy, especially Gaza and Israel. And then on top of that, on top of misunderstanding international, geopolitical, strife and politics, they have the nerve to reject this golden economy that we've given them. They are so ungrateful. That's the narrative we're setting you up for here, in terms of this framing. And it's out of control. So I'm talking this through with my friend last night. And she tells me about a phenomenon that she's experienced of ghost jobs, which I had never heard of before. And I'm still learning about it, but I'm looking it up. So I have an article here from Forbes. I'm going to read a couple of snatches of that, but I want to walk through the scenario that she gave me. So has a business background. She gave me a scenario. Okay, so you have Greg and Bill. They want to have a startup. Two versions of the scenario here. So there's one, me and my friend, right? Okay, so we, two humble women with no connections, right? We want to start a company. We've got $500,000. Okay. Who do we hire? How much do we pay them? Where does our operating money go? I'll try to, do this concisely. So in the first scenario, she and I, right? $500,000. Okay. I'm going to pay myself $100 and then, work it out so I get more equity as opposed to more salary up front, right? Let's build this thing up and then I'll, see more money on the back end. So she pays herself $100,000. She pays me $100,000, right? So then that's $300,000 to, hire other people, run the company, et cetera, et cetera. But then now when we get to Greg and Bill, they have access to $1 million. So what are Greg and Bill going to do, right? Greg is going to pay himself, let's say $250. He's going to bring his boy Greg on. He's going to pay him $250. So now out of that $1 million, that's $500,000 off the rip, just going to them. And they haven't even done any business yet. Okay. And they're already gutting the capital from the company. So they've taken $500,000. The other $500,000, they hire people. Now, this is the question that she asked me. Okay, so you've got the infrastructure, right? You've done, commercial real estate. You've bought everyone's computers, whatever, with the rest of the money. But again, keep in mind, you've paid yourself $250,000 and you haven't made one dime. So she says to me, all right, Deanne, so how are Greg and Bill making payroll? Because in our first scenario, she and I had $300,000 to run our company. So that would have taken us, right, for a little bit of time. But Greg and Bill had $1 million, paid themselves half of it, had half of it, hired up, and then, right, no more money. So I said, oh shit. They don't have enough, money to pay people. So I say to her, well, what are they going to do? And she tells me, I was so ignorant of this. Greg and Bill go to banks and start borrowing money, right? And Greg and Bill, they're going to go to, between 3 and 5 banks because they want to maximize the access they have to capital. So now Greg and Bill have gone into debt to fund payroll, and they've got their staff. So they're, doing okay. But now they're overworking their staff because they can't afford to hire anybody else as they build out because they inflated their salaries and they overspent on the rest, which I was shocked to hear because I had, when I was thinking of, more moving into independent film, I wanted to know how to start a business and things like that. So when I was living in Brooklyn at the time, I went to a few business, proposal meetings, and they just really emphasized, your proposal, 5-year plan, 3 to 5 year plan, SWOT analysis, who's your competition, who's, going to, buy from you or whatever. It just seemed like all of that information needed to be in the business plan. So I was like, well, I don't understand. Why would anybody give Greg and Bill $1 million seeing how they spent it, but that's, the US, that's where we live, and that's what happens. So let's go back to the second scenario. So Greg and Bill borrowing money to do payroll, and they're kind of expanding out, but they can't afford to hire people. So now their employees are complaining because they're overworked. And then Greg and Bill say, you know what? We value you. We're going to bring more people on the team. Don't worry about it. And that's where the ghost jobs come in. So what they'll do then is they have HR and stuff make up these dummy job openings, and they're basically just collecting resumes, and then they take the jobs down real fast, or people are wondering, well, who got called for an interview or whatever, there's no follow-up. And then the people on the job are, it looks like, okay, yeah. If I can just hold on for a few more months while they overwork me, then, I'll have some relief. But you're not going to have any relief because these are ghost jobs, because Greg and Bill can't afford to hire anyone, because Greg and Bill both overpaid themselves probably by $100 or $150K before they had even had $1 come in the door. Now take all of this and multiply it by pretty much most of America in terms of business outside small mom and pop shops. Now, the other part of it is, as things become more expensive, and then as people are having more issues financially, okay, now Greg and Bill are a little on hard times, still borrowing to make payroll, but they're maxed out in terms of how much they can borrow. Excuse me. And so now what are they going to do? They're doing layoffs, and that's what's happening now. Higher ed, just one of my mentors actually just resigned from my MFA program. It seems like, stuff is rocky there right now. And then what was another school that closed in New England? Was it not? It begins with a G. Sorry, I don't remember. But yeah, school closed. And you know, I had friends that were posting about it. So, you know, this is what we're seeing. We've got companies making poor financial decisions, the government not holding them accountable, and then you have on the front end people applying for ghost jobs and their resume goes into a black hole, and then on the other end people getting laid off because their employers are borrowing to make payroll. All right, so that was the conversation I had with my friend. I really hope I relayed it correctly. Now let's go to the Forbes article, because the Forbes article, here's the title. It's called How Ghost Job Postings Are Creating a False Sense of Hope. And let's see what it says here. Okay. As some may recall, the job openings and labor market turnover survey, so it's like the JOLTS survey, hadn't heard of it before, by the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported 9.6 million available jobs in September. That number left many questioning why hiring numbers seem so low despite the increase in job offerings, because them shits are fake. Shockingly, in October, the non-farm payroll increased by only 150,000 jobs. Yeah, that's low. With unemployment rates hovering at 3.9, according to the same Bureau of Labor Statistics. If open jobs were up over 9 million in September, but less than 2% of those openings were placed in October, where's the disconnect? Does job opening mean something different than what a job seeker expects? A current opening that one can apply to and expect to be interviewed for and potentially hired. I like the sarcasm there, because it looks like job opening really means an opening to the pits of hell where your resume sits and rots. Now, I'm just going to read a little bit more of this. Clarify Capital surveyed 1,000 hiring managers in October of 2023 and discovered that 50% of hiring managers created job openings to keep a warm talent pool at the ready. My bank account is not warm and at the ready on the strength of just somebody collecting me my resume. I need to be going in somewhere. I need to be logging on a computer somewhere and earning funds. This is just ridiculous. To keep a warm talent pool at the ready for when they are hiring without the intention to hire. This is one of the reasons why job seekers are finding it difficult to navigate the job boards, trying to assess postings that are for real jobs versus ones that are not. Other reasons hiring managers post fake job openings. Some of it is psychological. So here, some hiring managers said they wanted to give everyone the impression that they're growing, which means they're not, which means that they're probably gonna do layoffs. It's officially Q2, so they'll do layoffs. Others said they posted job openings to assure their overworked staff that they were seeking ways to help them. Again, false hope. A different group said they left the listings open, hoping their perfect candidate would apply. Why do you deserve a perfect candidate? Who has a perfect company? I've never worked at a perfect company. I've only worked at a couple of places that weren't dysfunctional, let alone deserving of looking for a perfect employee. So let's not get into that. But I'm just going to leave it at that. And so I was like, companies took the PPP loan money and did whatever they did with it, right? And again, I'm not talking about like mom and pop places. I'm talking about, more toward the Fortune 500s that are really will hire, thousands of people and play with their lives like that. Because, that's what you're doing. If you don't have a plan to, revenue came in. Now we were paying people versus, revenue came in, we're taking all the revenue and then borrowing to pay people. And these are the same people who are going to ask for tax cuts, regardless of who's in the administration. And these are the same people who are going to tell us, right, when we fall on hard times and need entitlements, which we pay into, that we're leeches and then we're taking from the system. And you can't even do a straightforward business plan to make sure that you can pay people. It's just, we don't operate from the same moral codes anywhere. And, I'm not saying we ever did, but it's just, you're okay with that. Just to say, give me money. Like, it's just, I've never really understood greed. I haven't. I want enough to not have to worry about it. I want stuff paid. Maybe I can go on a vacation once or twice a year. Buy healthy food, which is the next article that I'm going to look at, and stay hydrated and moisturized and mind my business. Like, I don't need to make millions and billions. But there are just so many people who it doesn't matter how despicably that you are treating other people, that you will still put the profit before the person. So, all right. So there's that. Now, the last thing that I wanted to talk about, which is the first thing that I listened to the commercial for the show tonight, is H5N1. I saw something on X about people getting bird flu from cows. And so I said, okay, well, I definitely need to look this up and get like a more legitimate sense of what's happening, because it's just one thing after another. So this is an article from the New York Times, and it says, what to know about the bird flu outbreak in dairy cows. I'll get to that. The infections, which include one associated human case, add another worrying wrinkle to a global outbreak that has devastated bird and marine mammal populations. So this bird flu outbreak has affected at least 13 herds in 6 states. So food prices are gonna go up even again because they're losing cattle. According to the federal and state officials, sorry, I shouldn't have broke that up. I'm just annoyed with the people that run this operation that we have going on here. There's corruption, and then there's just burning the whole thing down. And that's what it feels like. You just want to burn the whole thing down. Okay, you'll have money for the time being, but then what happens after that? It says, these infections represent the first time that a highly pathogenic bird flu virus, which is often fatal in birds, has been detected in U.S. cattle. At least one person in Texas has been diagnosed with bird flu after having contact with dairy cows presumed to be infected. So I'm like, well, shit, I'm going to have to stop eating meat again. I've been a vegetarian and a vegan before, but I'm going to have to stop this summer, because I've already been having reservations, I think, for obvious reasons, right? You have places like Wendy's and McDonald's and other folks saying that they are 3D printing meat. And then I saw this video, and the woman went into the grocery store, and basically she went to different shelves, and she said, what's on these shelves is not food. And she picked up several different bags, and you turn it over, it says bioengineered. So that's 2. Now the third is that if you were, I don't know if maybe he worked at a ranch. That wasn't clear. Okay, no, it says his primary symptom was conjunctivitis, but we don't know what the after effects of this will be. And it doesn't say if he was a cattle farmer, so I'm going to assume no. So I can't buy milk or have my barbacoa from Chipotle. I know it's not that good, but I like it. That's just there's too many problems. Excuse me. There are too many problems with our food supply. So, I've been evaluating how to make myself healthier, just because, the pre-menopause and the, my blood pressure went up a bit. And so, I've lost weight, but I'm just like, well, I'm not eating that poorly. What is it? I think a lot of it is I need to exercise more, but the food that I'm getting lately, if I'm honest, most of it doesn't even really taste good. And what I'm noticing too is, I live by myself. So during the week, sometimes I'll get something and I'll pick at it, but won't necessarily finish it. And usually what I do is either Saturday or Sunday morning, I'll just get up and throw stuff out. And it's been unsettling to go and take something out and look at it and know that it should have mold on it, but it doesn't. And to know that that's been in my stomach. So I have to figure out how to purify my food supply. All right. So those are some of my thoughts. I'm just a ray of sunshine today. And this has been The Composite. I'm Deanne Battle. This is season 3, episode 9. And I didn't see anyone log on now, but thank you to anybody that watches this on Instagram or watches the playback on YouTube. Okay? Take care. God bless. Good night.